Hey, welcome to the Digital Remodeler podcast. I'm so glad you're joining us today. And with me is Matthew Anderson from MCA Woodworks, based in Lee Summit, Missouri, serving the greater Kansas City area. So, Matthew, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Carl.
Hey, you bet. So let's talk a little bit about your journey. You've got a pretty cool story. You've been started doing woodworking, many years ago. So kind of take us through your journey. What brought you into the business, and we'll get into the business a little bit as well.
Yeah, so I, s- I think my first introduction into woodworking and that kind of allure of the craft of that started with my grandfather, who had a shop in his basement in Wisconsin, and we'd visit, and every time we'd visit, he'd take us down there, and we'd be building toys for ourselves, or he'd be building toys for Christmas, and we get those. And I think just realizing that he spent the time and effort to build us some things like that really kind of piqued my interest in what it was that you could make and what you could do. And then, of course, my dad as well, same thing. He started his own business many years ago as well, just kind of out of necessity when he was laid off. And he was basically a handyman who started with doing anything, everything around the house. And from there, eventually I was probably about 12, and he's like, I think it was my mom. She was tired of me getting into trouble, maybe, needing something to keep myself busy because I was always, just thinking, always creative, and had to have some sort of outlet to be building something or creating something. And so uh, I started that, and I think as soon as I could drive, I was starting to spend part of my days after school working with him. And so got introduced to just a little bit of everything, um, just all residential remodeling stuff. So that's uh that's kind of where it started. And I think it's always been, my dad has always had a shop space as well. And he wouldn't do that much in there, maybe build a little thing here or there for my mom, but we always had that space and always had the tools to work on making things. And so that's what grew. And then obviously I had an interest in music as well. And so um I I don't think I'm trying to think what I think my first project was just kind of your cigar box guitar, built out of some plywood and just random odds and ends. And that's where it started. It's not much to look at, but it did start a fascination with being able to build something that not only was beautiful but also made music as well.
Yeah, that's perfect. So my question is, do you still have that first one?
I do actually. Do you mind if I grab it? I think it might
Yeah,
be
grab
actually
it.
over here in the
Yeah, let's
office.
let's take a look.
This is gonna be embarrassing, Carl.
That's all right. I mean, you brought it up, so let's
See
let's see
that?
it. Awesome.
Look, basically a flying V there. But yeah, it's just built out of scrap plywood and plastic. And I don't even know what happened to this bridge at this point.
That's cool.
But yeah.
So obviously carpentry, I think, is probably the thing you really fell in love with, just kind of knowing your story a little bit.
Hmm.
And so you spent time working with your dad. What really made you decide, I think I want to start into my own remodeling business, and what was kind of that journey like? How did you get to that point?
Yeah, worked for I worked for three other companies after my dad, and in each one you kind of take, as you observe the culture of the company, the way they operated, their systems or maybe lack of, and then the way they interfaced with the clients. I had a takeaway from each one of those, and I was like, I like how we're doing this aspect of the business, and I don't like how we're doing this aspect of the business. And it just kind of went from there where um, I've always had that entrepreneur mindset and like the desire to have a business. And honestly, it's more of a fascination with the business. I've had several other little side gigs, even before I was starting my own business here at MCA. So um, yeah, it was just kind of, there was some things that definitely stood out as, this is a problem. You can't treat a client this way, or this system is broken. And I think realizing I think I can do better on this, and I can take what I've learned and the good aspects and the bad aspects and try and do it in a way that really serves people better and takes
Perfect.
care of them and their home as well as we can.
Good. So let's talk about some of those, lessons you took away. Like, what would you say were maybe the top two or three things that you said, yeah, this is something I would want to have in my business, and maybe the top two or three things you said, yeah, I definitely don't want to be doing that. What were kind of those key things you locked into?
Yeah, I think the for the first two that are just really good aspects of some companies that I work for is I want to go backwards. So the first thing that is good is I work for a company that planned everything out ahead of time as far as all the materials were in a warehouse, everything was ordered in there. So literally that first day on site, the myself or one of the other installers would be bringing every part of that project in to that home. And for the most part, these were like bathrooms. We weren't doing huge remodels. And if it was a kitchen, you might not get the cabinets the first day, but they would be there in the warehouse waiting for you to deliver those. So um, I think that was really good. Like the forethought of making sure everything was in. It kind of allowed for if there was anything out of stock, which we've dealt with a lot lately since 2020. Um, Back orders and out of stock things have really challenged me. So I think that's a good thing that I've taken away, just trying to make sure all those materials are in as soon as we can and ready to go. The next aspect is kind of a design and estimating process. And so a lot of guys just show up, they look at your project, maybe make some notes on their legal pad, and then you get a phone call or maybe a text, maybe an email with a job price, and it's just that, it's a price. And so I think one of the aspects of this other company that I work with is they had a design process that you'd walk through. The client would be brought in, and they would pay for it up front, just that for that design process. And we would walk through what you wanted your project to look like. We'd start the drawings, we'd start selecting all the finishes, and all of that would come together so that that client had a scope of work that they knew exactly what was going into the project. Um, for me, I added a selection sheet as well, so you have every part listed there. Should there even be a warranty issue down the road, you know, you can look at that chart again and see, we've got whatever faucet it is, and this is the model number and everything. Um, and then also from that, we built a detailed estimate. And so, and it is typical, there's always that budget constraint as well. And so there was that ability to say, this is the scope of work. Maybe we need to pull back here, or we want to focus more in another area. And so we'll shift, some of the funds in different ways. So I think it's really, it serves the client better in that case because they can kind of see where their money is being spent in a more clear way up front. And so they can, whether they want to feel a little bit more control there or just have a better understanding of what goes into their project, I think it's helpful to see that ahead of time.
Perfect. So, you brought up something kind of interesting, and it's kind of a little side jog we'll take here. Materials back order and shortage has been an issue, like you said, since COVID 2020.
Mhm.
Yeah. So how have you mitigated that? How have you, been able to navigate that, keep your clients happy, um, make sure you're getting projects done in a timely manner?
Well, we're still struggling with it. I think we got hit with a few things this year that have changed that time frame around. Um, I've had two items on the last. We had an unexpected that's kind of an act of God on one of my suppliers. They literally had to close overnight because the building was so damaged due to some wind. It wasn't a tornado, but due to high winds. And so that, we just had to shift. We had to kind of change the order of the project to keep things moving and get us close to the finish line, and then shift back a few gears and come back once we got the materials that we were waiting on. And and again, it's just like you got to be upfront with the client, like this is what's happening. Are there any other options to approach this with? Sometimes it might be switching products, but kind of those unexpected ones have caught us still, even as much as we plan ahead. Um, those still have caught us for sure on some of the like long lead time items, especially.
Yeah, good. So now you started your company in 2020, if I remember right. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So kind of looking back over the last, 4 years, what things did you do right starting up? What things, you misfired on? You had to go back and maybe do a little reworking of the process. So what were kind of the good launch points? What were have been some of the challenges that you had to work through?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I feel like everything kind of fell into place with getting clients and things like that. I certainly didn't market right off the bat, which um, again, remodeling is a referral business. That's what I'm used to, and so I think once you kind of hang your shingle out, you do get a certain amount of work. Um, so that's I think just talking to people and networking was a good thing right off the bat, but also I think not marketing was probably a downside on that. Um, right from the get-go, I knew I needed systems, I needed an estimate system, I needed a, lead tracking system. And I think I would put those in place as soon as I could, and as soon as I could figure out something and then work it until it broke and then start over. And so I don't know if that's good or bad. I think it's just part of the business process. Currently, I'm looking at a couple systems right now that I'm like, these are breaking down and I'm not going to be able to keep up. So I think it's just part of growth in that aspect where it's uncomfortable at times, but it's good and it's good work. Um,
Good.
and it does produce a better product, a better, system, a process in the end.
Perfect. So, as you started out, obviously referral based business, let people know you were in business. Any networking places that you found helpful? Were you going door to door? Were you doing B&I groups? What were you doing to let people know, hey, I'm here, I'm out? How were you getting the word out in that more referral environment?
Yeah. It was pretty much all just friends of friends. And so the first big project that I started was a bathroom, and that was someone I knew from church. And then she referred someone else, and um, I believe we started an Instagram. I don't know that it did much other than people could refer back to it with those projects. Because I don't think we even email marketed, maybe even the first year. We started sending a newsletter though, like a family newsletter, um, around Christmas time, Thanksgiving, Christmas time, and then one in the spring. And some of that was actually mail too, to different friends and people that we knew. And so I think that got the word out as well. Of just like, this is a new season of life for us, and we're starting our own business. So that's pretty much, I think, all we did right off the bat.
Good. So as you started growing, you talk about things break, and of course, even here in our agency, we always laugh. Our mantra is, go fast and break things, but then when we break them, we have to back up and
Hmm.
start to put the systems in place or whatever. So what would you say is the first thing you broke after you launched? You got your business up and running. What's the first thing you broke and you had to go back and do a little retooling?
Um, well, I mean, was it broken or was it maybe the wrong tool? Definitely the estimate process and the estimating tool that I was using. It would take just hours to do an estimate. And part of that now is just um, having a history and projects to look back on makes things a lot easier where you can, compare notes on how you did. Um, and I think it was maybe a year or two, maybe a year and a half about where I got basically developed a spreadsheet that we could track um, what the actual costs were, what I planned for versus the actuals. and that was a game changer. At this point though, it's actually that's the one of the aspects that's starting to break down now because it's like I need to be a little bit quicker. We have all this history, but I have to go back and look somewhere else, look back through previous projects and pull those numbers again. And so those things have changed. It's one of those things. I think it's starting to break down again. So
Good. So you brought us to a great place. So yeah, you're 4 years in. You just recently started working with us on the marketing side, so you're starting to add some other systems, and you're now at a place that you've operated really kind of as a solo with helpers here and there as you've needed it.
mhm.
But now you're getting to a place where you've got to harden the infrastructure a little bit to scale. And so, what are the key areas where you have felt like you needed to reinforce your infrastructure to continue your growth momentum?
Yeah, I think definitely the numbers. Um, That has been a challenge. I think as far as financials and things like that, that's something that I'm, having to study in now. Having numbers in the day-to-day on-site kind of the nitty-gritty of how many nails and how many dollars for those nails, that's easy for me. But then as a overall, how does that what's that overhead line item and how does that break down all of those items? That's something that I'm definitely working on now. Uh, I can feel that pain point right there.
Exactly. Good. And so, your specialization has been artisan carpentry. And
Yeah.
so, talk a little bit about that, just what that entails in your world, because I want to get into that for a second as
Yeah.
well.
So yeah, again just drawing from my love of the craft of woodworking and just enjoying that aspect with trim and just making the house beautiful at the end of the project with whether it's custom trim or built-ins or mantelpieces and even cabinetry and things like that. That just to me, that's been the part that I just find the most joy in doing. And it's it's something that that's part like having a well laid out kitchen or a bookcase in just the right spot. It makes a big difference in a home, and those details, those architectural details, especially when you walk into some of the older housing stock that we have in here in Kansas City, they're just beautiful. I mean, maybe it's even just the old quarter sawn oak trim that we'll have in some of these houses, and the built-ins that they would do back in the day, or the window details that you would get. Like it's just part of the home that makes it feel like home. It's not just a blank slate, and then you start hanging some artwork on the wall or stand a house plant in the corner. There's like some architectural detail that you can appreciate, and to me, that's what makes the house really inviting and warm is to have some of those details and hopefully my clients appreciate that as well. It's fun to like add little things here. The project that we're on now was an attic that was converted at some point and finished, and we've reconverted it, cleaned everything up, but we kept some of the original built-ins and even added one. And so, that's fun. Just like, okay, how can we make this work? How can we fix these things that, they've been here for oh, I don't know, 60 years and they're not quite, and the drawers don't work right and they don't close and all that. And how can we fix that? How can we keep the original character but make it operate again, make it functional for someone now? So it's a fun process and it's fun to solve those problems. There's a difference each time, there's something new, something interesting, and pulling out the problem solving cap and putting it on is a lot of fun.
Good. Yeah, it's been fun reading some of your client reviews. So I know that your customers have appreciated those little touches. And the reason I wanted to dive into that a little bit is I think sometimes remodelers miss out on the opportunity that it's those little specializations at times that are the difference maker. Thing about remodeling is you've got to set yourself apart from your competition. What makes you different? And I think that's one of the things you've done well, and that's why I wanted to bring some attention to it. And so, looking ahead, so here's kind of the interesting place, you find yourself. That's your passion, your love, but now you're having to put on your business owner cap and
Mhm.
kind of shift gears a little bit. And so, how are you finding? How are you kind of looking ahead, balancing the passion for what you do, and the role of the business owner? And so, what's kind of the adjustments you're making in your own workflow, so that you have time to work on the business, not just in the business?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I mean, I just turned 40 this year, and I think part of that is the realization that um, there's a aspect of what we need to do as craftsmen of passing that on. And so I'm starting to see that as part of my role as well. And so hopefully we get some kids out of the latest generation that are excited to work and excited to excuse me, excited to do some hard work, some dirty work, and also put in the time because I've got well over 10,000 hours, that um common saying of just that amount of experience is what you need to be proficient at what you're doing. Um so I think that's one aspect of just being like, you know what? It's time to start looking at these young guys and seeing, okay, is there potential and are they ready to go? Because, I'm ready to teach them. And so I'm excited about that aspect for sure. Um, there's definitely a balance where whether I offload some of the stuff I used to do onto subcontractors so that I can focus just on the intricate craftsmanship parts with the trim or something like that. So there's that aspect. I've had to even have some of our built-ins done by another great cabinet shop that can do an amazing job and keep that high quality that we want. Just because I can't build them all on in-house anymore. I'd be a cabinet shop as well as a business owner and a remodeler. It'd just be too many hats to wear. So
Good. So, final question for you. You've started your business, you've grown it, now you're at this transition point. What's the deeper reason behind your business? So what is it? What's the end game for you? What are you hoping to accomplish long term?
yeah, I'm first off, I know I would like to see, people that are our clients or our future client just be taken care of well, treated fairly, honestly, and just give it, at the end of the day, they have a wonderful product and they're happy with, living in their house and they're, thankful to have worked with us because it was a great experience. So that's part of it. I think also having employees and things that we're providing great jobs for, great opportunities for to grow in those jobs and um, providing for families as well for their families and things like that. So that part excites me. And then long term, I'd like to see it to the point where I'm starting to step back from the day to day and be more high level as far as the leadership role, and that would allow for a little bit more of me with the family and some of the things that we would like to engage in more with our own kids. So just it's kind of a growth process there. I think that I'm really excited about seeing.
Excellent. And then last question for you, and we'll wrap up. If you were to give your top piece of advice to anybody listening to the podcast today, what's your number one piece of advice you'd give to any other remodeler out there that's trying to grow and scale their business?
Shoot, that is a really good question. I don't know. I started mine with hustle. I think that might just be all it is. Just get out there, do the hard work, and put in the long hours. And for me, it was also about being efficient. So um, just being really efficient as far as organization of even down to the tools and the job site and things like that. So that's probably the best advice that I could give someone new starting out.
Fantastic. Matthew, thanks for joining me today. It's been a great interview and have appreciated our conversation.
All right. Well, I appreciate you, Carl, and remodeling marketing team for partnering with us and really getting us, I think, in a good spot. I'm excited to see how this grows and how we get to work together in the future to build this business a little bit by little bit.
Fantastic. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to being with you on the next episode.